Hi everybody and welcome to this Mastery Path Connections interview. I'm in Turkey, I'm Debra Sofia Magdalene and I'm house and pet sitting at the moment, and I'm delighted to be interviewing today Francesca Cassini, who's in the UK, and we're able to connect via technology. So Francesca, welcome. The purpose of the interviews is to really share with people about having a nomadic lifestyle. So can you share us a little bit about yourself? So first of all, how old are you? How old were you when you went house free and the circumstances around that?
Yes. Well, I'm 61 now. And I went nomadic in January of 2013. So I can't remember what age I was, but, end of my 50s, really. And it was a financial thing that prompted it, that I felt like I just wasn't making enough money to be able to stay in the flat that I was renting in Twickenham. But I'd been working and playing and experiencing a long-term intuitive training course. And a couple of my other friends during the course had been given an intuitive prompt to become nomadic. And I had this absolute terrifying fear that my intuition would prompt me to go nomadic. So when I suddenly got to this financial crux point, I, with a sinking heart, checked in with my intuition. And it was like, yes, be free, let everything go, travel lightly, be free. And when I got that, it just felt like a huge weight lifting off my shoulders, even though it was frightening at the same time. But the excitement took over, and it did feel very, very different, like taking a big millstone off my neck.
I can absolutely appreciate what you're saying. I had the same experience. Francesca, did you have a plan when you went nomadic?
Sort of. I had an initial plan, which was to take baby steps and to find like a community that I could be a volunteer at for a couple of months, something like that, just to get into the swing of things. So that's what I did. I did some research on communities that needed volunteers, but bearing in mind I was leaving in January and I live in England, I thought, it's going to be really cold and wet and damp in a lot of those places that are not quite built yet. So I found what's called Eco Chateau, which is a chateau estate in southwest France. And I thought, that's the place for me. If I'm going to go nomadic and become a volunteer, let's go and live in a chateau. So I did.
So what did you do in the chateau?
Well, I had an option. I was actually the only volunteer at that time of year because normally she'd be closed. So there was the owner of the Chateau estate, which she's converting into a sustainable housing project, an eco project, and it's stunning there. But at that time of year, it wasn't the kind of thing for me to work out on the land, but that's not my forte. So I was actually helping her write blogs and create a bit of marketing and PR. And I set up a couple of Facebook pages and Twitter pages and told as many people as I could think about what she was doing there. And I was very inspired by her project. She was a very interesting and inspirational woman.
And did you get paid for doing this, or was it on an exchange basis?
Well, initially it was on when they say that you're a volunteer, but actually you pay to be there. So even though it's not very much, I was supposed to pay board and lodging, even though it wasn't very much. But I poured my heart and soul into what I was doing. So eventually I ended up not paying anything to be there. She didn't pay me, but she paid me a commission if I found people who came and would book to rent the chateau for a training program or a retreat or whatever, which was the way that she earned her income before turning the whole place into an eco village. And I did, in fact, find a couple of people to rent the property. And so I got myself a little bit of commission, enough for the next couple of weeks, after I left.
Yeah. So how long were you there for in total?
10 weeks, and I loved it. It was one of the best things I've ever done.
So what did you do after that?
Well, I came back to the UK. I didn't know what to do after that. I just assumed that I would get an intuitive nudge in the right direction. So I came back to the UK, stayed with my sister for a while. That was an interesting experience because I went from staying in a beautiful chateau on a 27-acre estate to spending 3 weeks in a little Romany caravan at the bottom of a tiny postage stamp garden, but overlooking the Thames. So two gloriously beautiful places, but wildly different. And then it was a matter of just discovering where I would go next. So sometimes I went pet sitting, sometimes I went and looked after children, sometimes friends I hadn't seen for ages invited me to stay for a few days or a week. So I just sort of went here and there, meandering around the UK.
And did you enjoy that lifestyle?
I loved it. I loved it. I mean, the biggest thing was overcoming that fear of not knowing where I was going to be next. And because I had very little in the way of revenue, I didn't have savings behind me. I didn't really have a real fallback position. So I had to overcome that stressful anxiety that goes, where am I going to stay? And am I going to be out in the cold? And is everything just going to just fall apart and I won't know what to do. But once I got into the hang of realizing that it was okay not to know what was happening next, that I would just know when I knew, and that actually I always found somewhere, something always turned up, then it became this incredible journey into the unknown, just to see what was unfolding. So yes, on the whole, I loved it. Yes, some very frustrating times and some scary times, but the overall experience was amazing.
So when you were actually taking the first steps in becoming like a nomad, what did you do about like your belongings and where you were living?
Oh, well, I had a rented flat, so that was easy to give my notice in. That was fine. I did some car boot sales and like garage sale kind of thing. I told the local newspaper what I was doing, and so they put in an article about me, hoping that would bring more people in. And I put quite a bit up online. I told people what I was selling through Facebook, and people would get in touch, and they were quite inspired that at that age. I used to say to people that armed only with my laptop, my camera and my imagination, I'm going to become nomadic. And so it would inspire people that I was traveling with so little. What I didn't sell, I gave away. And then a small proportion of things that I just couldn't bear to part with, I put into storage at a friend's storage facility. She had a little bit of room left in her storage.
Yeah. And did you go back for the things that you kept in storage, or did you find that you let go of more things when you went back for them?
Oh, I never went back for anything while I was nomadic, because there was nothing I needed there. It was only things that I would ever unpack if I had a home again. So actually, they're still in storage with a friend of mine. But because I now have a home, at some point soon I'll go and get those things. And I know some of the things that are in there, but I don't know everything. But they'll be precious. They'll be the deeply precious things I couldn't let go of. So it'll be an exciting moment to see them, be like seeing old friends I haven't seen for years.
Like Christmas.
Yeah, exactly.
All your surprises again.
Yeah, yeah, just without spending any money.
Yeah. So what would you say is a highlight of the lifestyle that you have?
Oh, the highlight, I think, is learning that it's okay to be in the unknown, and going on that flow of trust in the universe, if you like, or trust in one's intuition, that actually when you go with that sort of childlike innocence into that kind of realm, my experience was that the world is a very benign place. I felt very, very looked after. Yeah. So yeah, I think that would be the highlight of it all.
And what about challenges? What would you say is the greatest challenge that you experienced?
Well, probably the same thing. It's like two sides of a coin, isn't it? I found it very frustrating sometimes not having an address. You're so out of the system and you never know where you're going to be from one week to the next. So you can't make plans. You can't really know where you're going to be. And so there are certain things that become difficult. Our society structure is not built for people who are nomadic. It's built for people who can fill in boxes. And so you can't do things like get a loan or get a credit card very easily. And, things like that. You can't take out a new phone and contracts, things that you find and quite easily when you have your own home and you pay bills, utility bills suddenly become much harder. So it can be very frustrating sometimes. You have to learn to become very fluid and flexible.
You don't have
and that hasn't always been my middle name.
Yeah,
sorry.
Without an address, you can't vote either.
No. But I don't tend to do much of that. But that wasn't a problem for me.
Yeah.
But there are things that you can get caught up on not having an address, like getting a new phone contract, but the SIM card will only go to a registered address. Mm-hmm. Well, of course, if you're a nomad, you're never at that registered address. Yeah. So you can't get things immediately. It might take you weeks to get them.
Yeah, I completely understand that. What would you say that you've learned about yourself through the experience that you have of being a nomad?
Well, it was an amazing experience because I had to you're with people, unless you're pet sitting, but if you're staying with people, you're with them apart from when you're asleep. So I'm quite a private person, and on the whole, I like a lot of my own quiet time. But as a nomad staying with friends, that's quite hard to do. And then sometimes you might sleep on their sofa. And so actually that idea of being private goes out of the window. So I discovered that actually, even though I do like being private, I really love being around people. And when you spend a week with a friend instead of 2 or 3 hours over a meal, you go to a much deeper space of connection with them on the whole. Yeah. So the friendships that I forged were much deeper with people that I didn't know very well. I mean, you get to know people really well in a short space of time, and you become very bonded. Mm. So I found out about myself that actually I really love living in community much more than I ever thought that I did. Yeah, I guess that's what I learned about myself, and my capacity to be flexible.
That's great, thank you. Would you recommend this lifestyle to other women who were considering being a nomad?
Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, the thing is, unless you're homeless in a negative sense, even if you don't have a plan B or a backup, it will always be one. You'll always find something. So a toe in the water it's a phenomenal thing to do. It increases, for me, I mean, apart from what you just asked me about what I learned about myself, but I trust myself more. I feel like I'm a stronger, better person for all that. And I think that particularly for older women, it can be phenomenally valuable to overcome those fears and feel more secure in oneself, more able, and with a greater level of capacity. So yeah, I feel it's an incredible adventure, and yeah, I definitely recommend it.
And it's great for building your self-confidence and self-esteem as well, isn't it? Because like when you travel, especially when you're by yourself and you learn, it's very much about trusting yourself. And as you said, that you can take
yes.
more. Yeah.
I also discovered. Sorry, I just want to share one more thing, Deborah, about that, is that I found that there is another exchange when you're in someone's home. When you're not paying money for rent, there's an emotional exchange that happens that is to do with being really giving love and really receiving people's generosity. There's a different level of exchange. And we often think if we don't have money, that we're less than and that we have nothing to give and that people are saving us. But actually, that's not true. I often found I would turn up in someone's house exactly when I was needed, exactly, and that I gave something that they were unable to find until that point. And so there is an incredible sort of orchestration that happens that also builds that confidence.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you there. And, you know, and it's like being able to receive as well, because I think as women, I know for me personally, I have this huge challenge with learning to receive. And when you're traveling like this, it's an opportunity to allow yourself to be in that flow of receiving as well as giving.
Yes.
Yeah. So have you got any top tips for ladies that are watching this?
Top tips. So top tips to making the decision. I think the top tip is, if you've been flirting with it, go for it. And my top tip for traveling as a nomad is really give of yourself when you're in someone's home. Really connect with them. Because I know some nomadic people who were quite separate from the people that they stayed with. And for me, the value came in that deep level of connection and finding out what that exchange is. So, yeah, I would say really give yourself when you travel, really give yourself to the people that you stay with.
I love that tip, because it's about being of service as well, isn't it? You know, and I think when you do give of yourself, it's allowing other people to see you in that flow, and I think they want to do the same as well. It's like this beautiful ripple effect that's created. Yeah. So,
It's really beautiful.
can you just share with us now about, you know, how your circumstances changed and how you came to then being settled again?
Yes, well, very unexpectedly, I ended up going out to Peru for 5 weeks in 2015, and that was a job that just came out of the blue. And part of that was to be in Peru for 5 weeks, which was amazing. And I got such a deep, heartfelt desire to be more immersed in nature, so that when I came back from Peru, all I could think was that I needed to be out in nature, as deeply embedded in nature as I possibly could. Like I wanted to lie down in the grass when it rained. You know, I mean, I didn't, but that's what I wanted to do. So I ended up, the winter of 2015, 2016, I went and stayed for 4 months in an off-grid yurt in the middle of a secluded valley up in the Cambrian Mountains through the wettest winter on record in Wales. And that was the culmination of all of my nomadic experience and journey. And it was the most magical thing. It was incredibly challenging, but also incredibly magical. And I came out of that really wanting to be of service to elder women, so women over 50, 60, 70, because I really got in touch with my ability to look after myself while I was in the yurt. And I just thought, wow, this would be so incredible for older women to realize that they are wild, wonderful, and wise elder women. Forget this older business. You know, we're elder, but we're vibrant and amazing. Yeah. So through a journey of, I didn't know how it was going to take me to that, but just by following prompts and living in little caravans, and I only want to live where I can hear and feel the impact of the weather. So I live in a caravan now. So I set up a community, a membership community called the Silver Tent, which is for women over 50 who want to remember that they are wild, wonderful, and wise elder women. And the community is so amazing. It's such an incredible place of support and love and creative collaboration, that the wisdom from there and the energy from there is really rippling out into the wider world. And so now it's time for me to stay at home for a bit while I do this. Have my cat back. He was the hardest person to give away. and to really build the energy of this beautiful project, which I know is my legacy project.
And I'm a member of your Silver Tent community, and I just love the work that you're doing there. It just so resonates with me. So how can people find out about the Silver Tent? Where can they go?
Well, you can go onto the website, www.thesilvertent.com, which gives an outline of what we're doing and what we're about and what our grand vision is. And also there's a closed group on Facebook that they're welcome to join as long as they are women over 50, and they'll be asked that before they can join the Facebook group now. I have so many men who try and join and so many young women. So the Facebook group is the Silver Tent. There's a Silver Tent Facebook page and there's a Silver Tent Facebook group. It's the group that you want to find. That's the one where all the buzz is going on, and where you'll receive just the most amazing welcome and support. So website, Facebook page.
Thank you so much for sharing with us today. I think it's really important that, you know, as women, we share our own personal stories, because that can inspire so many other people that are thinking, you know, can I take this journey? What's it like? Can I take the first step? You know, and I think one of the things that's really come through from this interview for me is about how you've learnt that trust, and that you don't need to know all the plan. You just need to know that you will be looked after and have that trust that everything is okay.
Yes, and I just want to add that anybody who joins the Silver Tent is going to find it much easier to become nomadic, because we are starting to connect with other members to find out whether they have rooms available and whether they'd be happy for other Silver Sisters to go and stay with them for a while. So we've got women all around the world saying, yes, I've got a spare room. I can take someone in who can sleep on the sofa, or there's a spare room. They might have to put a few quid into the kitty, but actually there are welcoming women all around the world. So this is a great time to become nomadic and travel.
That's amazing. The silver sofas.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I will look.
Silver sofas and wait.
Yeah, I will look with interest as to how things progress in the Silver Tent. Oh, very, very exciting. So thank you for sharing your gifts. Thank you for your time today.
Pleasure.
I look forward to speaking with you again soon. Bye.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Deborah. Bye.